Good morning.
Good morning.
We are here today with Miss Nancy Naigle, author extraordinaire, at the RAGT event in Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati, one that's sponsored by Lori Foster. And we're happy to have you here today. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Let's start out by telling our viewers, readers, listeners about your latest book release.
Oh gosh. Okay, so it comes out in just a couple weeks. It's called And Then There Was You. And this was such a neat book to write. Yeah, a lot of people watched the little mini series, with Reinventing Anna or Inventing Anna. I say it's reinventing because she was really a nut, but and the Tinder Swindler and that kind of stuff. And as I started, I was so engrossed by the whole premise of that. And I started doing more research and kind of understanding how that stuff worked. And so in this story, this gal has been recently widowed, and she's taken first class trips with her husband's miles, because what else do you do with them, right?
Right.
And she ends up the target of somebody, and she gets swept off her feet, goes on this wonderful vacation, and comes home to an empty house, like not a hanger, not a light bulb, nothing.
Ooh.
And that's where the story begins. So, it happens more and more than people even realize, but, there are ways through those tough situations. We always rise. We're a woman here at Roar. And she does find love and true happiness in the journey of the story.
Ooh, that sounds good. So is this going to be a start of a series?
It is.
Okay.
Glad you asked. So this is the first book in the Chestnut Ridge series. I hadn't intended it to be a series. I wrote the novel, turned it in, we edited it, and I was actually writing another Christmas book called Jingle Sales with a sailboat and stuff. And my editor called me and said, Nancy, can we switch this up to Christmas in Chestnut Ridge, because I love this town? And I was like, okay. So, And Then There Was You is the first in Chestnut Ridge series. And then A Christmas in Chestnut Ridge will come out next year for the holiday season.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, question behind the scenes. Is Chestnut Ridge based on a real place?
It is.
Okay, tell us.
A couple years ago, I moved to the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. I was born and raised on the beach, Flatlander. And then I moved to North Carolina after I lost my husband to kind of heal and get myself together. And then I moved to the Blue Ridge Mountains, and they are beautiful. And, I lived my whole life in Virginia, and I thought I knew everything about Virginia. And I have learned so much since being in the Blue Ridge Mountains.
It's almost like a different state.
It is. And there's so much beauty. Oh my goodness. I live on this little place in Patrick County that backs up to No Business Mountain, which used to be the Moonshiners Mountain. So you had no business being up on it, right?
That's right.
And they even sell t-shirts. There's a Virginia Tech extension at the Reynolds Homestead, and they sell t-shirts about that. But it's so beautiful. And I sit on my back patio and look out. I have a 25.5-acre place, and there's a pond on the property, and it backs up to that beautiful mountain. And I sit on my porch, say my prayers every morning, and thank God for being able to see that nature. I mean, it is different every single day.
Yes.
The trees, the nature, the deer.
The
oh my gosh, the baby deer. Those little spotted guys jumping out, and they chase each other through my fields. And oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. But
it's like a Disney movie.
It is. It is. And my mama lives in a tiny house on my property, and she loves it. But I learned things about there once on the East Coast were the big chestnut trees, and they were as big as the redwoods. Who knew? I mean, there are pictures of these chestnut trees with whole families lined up in front of them. They were so big. They could build a whole house out of one. And the fairy stones at Fairy Stone Park. How did I not know that? How did I grow up in Virginia and not know that one of the very few places you could find a fairy stone, a stone that looked like a little cross, naturally made, was right there in practically my backyard. So lots of those little trivial pieces are in the story. I fictionalized the county and the town, but definitely using a lot of the things that have just enamored me to that area.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. And I know, from knowing you a while, that you've always been kind of a country girl with horses and stuff. I'm guessing you still have the horses around and still ride?
I don't,
No.
you know, I'm in my 60s now. And if you remember, I ruptured my Achilles tendon a couple years ago. And so riding became a little too painful. So Tudor, my beautiful Palomino, now lives up the street with my friends. They bought her from me, and the others are gone too. So don't have horses on the property anymore.
So she's just having a nice
She
retirement.
is, oh yeah. Oh, she is living the high life with a big, pretty Palomino man. And so she is happy, and I still ride. I'm going to go to Glacier this summer and do a ride with my whole horseback riding girlfriends, but
that would be
don't have a horse. But my dog's as big as a horse, so he might count.
Now, writing has not always been your profession. You started out in finance.
I did.
Yeah. So this is kind of a big jump from being in a very practical, logical finance world to writing wonderful, romantic, happily ever after books.
It is. You know, as a senior vice president with Bank of America, I had a great 20-year career with them. But the year I turned 40 was a really tough year for me. And I think it is for a lot of us when we turn 40. But for me, from a business perspective, my opportunity was to ship technology positions offshore to India.
Yeah.
And although I understood the business reason and I did a great job at it, it really hurt me. I knew a lot of those people and they were so good at their jobs. And even though they're getting a package, that's just a hard thing. You're shaking up somebody's life.
Yes.
And, you know, one of the things that always got me through bad days, you know, bad jobs, bad husbands, whatever, were books. And so as I was trying to figure out how I was going to kind of even the balance and make myself not feel like such a horrible person, I started thinking, you know what, if I could write one book to help one girl through one bad day, that would be amazing.
Yes.
And so I didn't set out to be an author. I set out to write this one book to help a fellow girl that was as frazzled as me. And it took me 9 years to get it published. You know, but the first publishing deal was with Montlake Romance, and it was the 3 books, the Adams Grove series. Sweet Tea and Secrets was that first book, and I loved it, and I kind of got the bug. And then I got another 3-book deal, and I was, you know, writing on coast to coast trips. So I did a lot of work out in California and Arizona, and so when I would fly, I should have dedicated all those books to U.S. Airways because I had no idea back then when we could open our laptops and actually work in the seats and had room. I should have been really thankful for that.
Yeah, I know.
But then, you know, 2013 rolled around. My husband was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, and that was the end of October. And by January, he was gone. And I knew that, you know, I got a heavy dose of life is short and you need to make a difference and do what's important to you.
Now,
and
was that the year you kind of transitioned more to women's fiction? I don't know what year The Shell Collector came out. Was that?
You know, The Shell Collector, I don't know what year it came out either. Maybe 2020, 19, I don't know. Yeah, probably 2020. The Shell Collector definitely came out of my grieving process. And I, you know, now that you say that, I guess I did kind of shift towards women's fiction at that point. And I didn't even make that connection until you just said it, because the Boot Creek series was just coming out then. And that was my first set of women's fiction books. And, but I knew I just wanted to spread joy and help other women through difficult circumstances, you know.
Now, I'm not sure of the number, but I know quite a few of your books have been made into Hallmark movies. Congratulations, and they are wonderful books and wonderful movies. But now everybody, of course, wants to know, do you get to write the scripts for those movies? Do you get to audition the handsome hunkies?
No.
You get to be on set. You know, most authors don't, but
I do get to be on set.
Tell us a little about it.
I don't write the screenplays. Now I have 2 screenplays written and I'm working on that craft, but it is completely different from writing.
Very different.
It is very different. That's a craft you know, it's a relearn. And, but I've had a special opportunity being on set to see both sides and to see my same story for film and for, for reading. And so, it's a very unusual education, and I'm really appreciative of that. Being on set was so surreal. Now, the first movie, Christmas Joy, I went on set, and the first scene that I got to watch being played out in front of me was when Joy is holding that special Christmas ornament that her mama had given her. Her mama's been, passed for a while, and it breaks. And, Ben's trying to sweep it up, and I sat there and cried. I cried big old tears, and because it was so interesting to watch your words and your thoughts and your emotions come to life right in front of you. And they were just like they were in my head. So strange. And Vicky, the producer, saw me. I'm sitting in, what they call, what do they call it? Video Village or whatever, and I'm watching in this black tent on a director's chair, not the short kind where my feet would reach the ground, but the kind that you have to hop up in. My feet are swinging, and they've got the snow going. There's snow coming over my shoulder, and I'm just crying. And Vicky comes in and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I'm fine." And she said, "Well, do you like it?" I was like, "I love it." And she said, "Well, then you can cry all you want." And I was like, "Good, because I probably go cry all day." And I think I did.
Noise
yeah, that's right. No snorting, right? Yeah, so it was so beautiful. And it was so interesting because, it's funny how you do things with no plan in place. And, here I am on set, born and raised in the Tidewater area. And while I'm there, they bring Balsam Hill was one of the sponsors. So the trees and stuff were gorgeous, beautiful set. They bring out these ornaments from Balsam Hill, great big ones. And they were having the actors and me sign some of them to auction off for Operation Smile. And Operation Smile's in Norfolk, Virginia. So it's like, oh, this is like so perfect. So yeah, it's fun when things just kind of accidentally happen. Happy accidents.
Happy coincidences.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice when the universe lines up like that.
Yeah. And I did get to meet Ryan Pavey before he was cast for Hope at Christmas. And I was there with my Crown Media gal at the TCAs for Hallmark in Beverly Hills, big fancy party. And I got introduced to Ryan, who was just a pleasure, just as handsome and nice as he is on screen in person. And it was the day after that they offered him the position for Hope at Christmas. And I was like, "Oh, I just met him." I had nothing to do with it, but I was definitely delighted.
Nice if they just let you do the auditions. I know.
Yeah. I would love that.
Now, do you have any more upcoming movies scheduled for Hallmark or anyone else?
Not yet.
Yeah.
We're having some discussions, and so we will see. Everybody stay tuned.
Okay. Now, besides women's fiction, which you've kind of, made your own, I know you also co-authored a couple cozy mysteries. Now, do you have any more cozy mysteries coming up?
No more cozy mysteries coming up, although those girls, they tempt me all the time. If I had extra time, right now I'm contracted through 2026. But yeah, those were so fun to write. Kelsey Browning and I wrote, I still call it the Granny series, but they are the Seasoned Southern Sleuths Cozy Mysteries. And there's 5 mysteries and 2 little romance novellas because we had to give the sheriff, a little love. He was so hard working in those mysteries. And those old women that we like to tease and say they were like the Golden Girls meet Dirty Harry. And that sheriff is always trying to get those old girls out of trouble. And they were such a fun story to write. And Kelsey's from Texas and I'm from Virginia, and writing those girls was so much fun.
It's a fun series. It really is a fun series. Are there any kind of, I know women's fiction is a little more emotional and doesn't necessarily have a happily ever after, maybe a happy resolution. Is there any plot lines you won't tackle? Anything that's taboo emotionally?
Not emotionally. I don't ever write anything sexy. But emotionally, no. And and I've tapped on some interesting things recently. And the Wedding Ranch, I've got a widowed man and a woman who's gone through a relationship, a divorce after adultery. And I also have stories with family members that have been battling drug addiction, things like that. I usually try to stick to stories that have something that I've experienced or know somebody so that I can speak.
And try to keep them inspiring.
Keep them inspiring, but I also want to have the right empathy level for them. And I think a lot of those more difficult situations, if you haven't walked in those shoes or walked somebody else through those situations, you can't give it the right level of empathy. And I want to be sure that I'm always really respectful of all those things.
Right. So when you have She Laughs free time, who do you read?
Oh gosh. Okay. So I love Nicholas Sparks, and I know a lot of people get mad at him. And in my book, Garrett from Message and Bottle is still alive and well. And quite honestly, I have him in 6-foot cardboard in my office. I
see that coming.
I like reading. I like Carl Hyacin. I think he does great character. I love Mary Kay Andrews, Mary Alice Monroe, Debbie Maycomber. I mean, the list goes on. And I have so many girlfriends that are authors. I just cannot read them enough. And I've had fun lately because for the last year I've been super busy. And so I've really only had time to read things that are being written by new authors where they need a blurb. And so I've been trying to do that as kind of a give back. And so I've read a bunch, only a few will I've actually, put my blurb out there for, but it's been fun for me to actually read some new authors.
That's nice.
And then I look forward to watching their careers, bloom. And
so what fun. Book are you signing here, or books at RAGT?
Oh gosh, I am signing the Shell Collector, and Shell Collector is the story of my heart, and it is based off of a real story of a woman who kicked up a shell with a message in it at the right time in her life. Beautiful story. Probably the most important book I'll ever write in my life. So the Shell Collector, The Wedding Ranch, which came out in December of last year. And that has a lot of fun things in it. I think people will enjoy it. It's not a wedding story. There is a wedding in a wedding venue, but the real story is about a widower and a divorcee who kind of, are brought together by chance and kept together by hope, and really pretty family saga. So hoping people will enjoy that. I am signing What Remains True, which is the second book in the Antler Creek town. Christmas Angels was the first. What Remains True has a bull rider as the hero, and he is going for the gold, and he is solely focused on that. So he thinks.
Well, it seems like, and I love your Christmas books. Is Christmas your favorite holiday?
Yes.
Is your house all sparkly and everything for Christmas?
Yes.
I'll bet it is. Okay, so last question, fun one. What's your writing kryptonite? You sit down to write. What's your biggest distraction?
Oh gosh, my mama. Oh, so here's a funny, my mama, I love my mama. I mean, and anybody who's met my mama loves my mama, but she cannot keep her little mouth shut. And so she's so funny because she wants to be my biggest helper, my biggest advocate, and she is. But the other day, even, here's a perfect example of how she'll interrupt me because I have to have quiet when I write, no music, no nothing. And so she's sitting at the kitchen table or the dining room table, and she's working on painting shells for the Shell Collector. She loves painting those little shells with polka dots on them, with the decoupages, the sayings in them. And I'm working, and I'm on deadline. I'm trying to get the book in. It was Christmas in Chestnut Ridge. I was working hard, and she 3 times, Nancy, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, oh, never mind. And I know you're writing, I'm sorry. And she's like, you need tape, put tape on my lips. I'm like, I can't put tape on your lips, but
bless her.
So totally by accident, and not even that I get upset about it. It tickles me, and I adore my mama. But those are the distractions. They're not meant to be. It's like just 1 minute, but it pulls you out of your story. You kind of have to sit back, and usually once I'm out of the story, it takes me a while to get back in it.
Yeah, it does. It does. First of all, now to finish up, where can readers find you online?
NancyNaigle.com.
Okay.
Super easy.
And there's links to all of your books there, and they're on sale on Amazon and all the normal retailers.
Yes. And to my newsletter is there, and my event calendar. I do like 23 events a year. So
do you?
Yeah. So
That's
maybe I'm
full
coming to town. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for being here today. And it was so good to see you again.
It's great to see you too.
Thanks, sweetie.